All right, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back into Cherry Picking Week 15 of the fantasy hockey season. Today's episode must add 4 guys to add before this week starts. And then later on in this week, we'll be going over injury updates to look out for, guys who are coming back, guys who maybe just got injured that you're not aware of either. And then also maybe a prospects update, and then something to do with the Stanley Cup NHL odds. But before we get into today's must add, if you're not playing NHL DFS at OWNERSBOX right now, what are you doing? It's one of the best places to play. The only place to play if you're in Ontario right now. Click the link in the description below to get your first contest free. And then also a free entry into our new game, Lightning Lineups, which is almost just as electric as the NHL DFS option. So be sure to check out those links. And let's get right into the must add for today. So the first guy we're going to be looking at, a little bit more of a depth guy on this really good hockey team, but right now the big dogs on the Rangers just aren't really producing at the same rate we saw at the beginning of the season. So that player is Filip. He's 17% rostered. He has the center and right wing capabilities in Yahoo leagues. We're seeing Filip now on this third line with Barclay Goodrow and Jimmy VC that's actually been producing at a very solid rate. It's more of a grittier line, but a really, really fast line and maybe some undervalued skill as well. And these guys are just producing really well. If you look at the last 2 weeks, Chytil, he's second on the team in expected goals at 2.15, third in shots on goal, and then first on the team with 4 goals over the last 2 weeks too. He also plays on the second power play line and is a point per game over his last 6. As the playoff race heats up, Gerard Gallant is going to need these guys like Filip and some of these other guys to produce, especially if Zibanejad, Panarin, and Kreider, is hurt a little bit right now too. He's a little banged up. So if they're in and out of the lineup, not producing, he's going to need these depth guys to really start doing that on the offensive end. And we saw that in the playoffs last year. The kid line of Kakko, Lafreniere, and Chytil actually played really well in the playoffs. They have been recently broken up, but Chytil's doing the same thing now with just new players on his line. Barclay Goodrow, more of a recent pickup for the New York Rangers too. So now Chytil's doing it with a bunch of different guys. We've seen it before. He has the ability to do so. He has the ability to play center and right wing in fantasy hockey. So at 17% rostered on a Rangers team that's looking for scoring from elsewhere, he's starting to do it. There's no reason why you shouldn't pick up Filip. All right, so the next guy we're going to be picking up this week, the Kraken have been an unbelievable offensive team recently. I think people just haven't really expected them to produce at such a high rate, but they're averaging 5 goals per game over the last 2 weeks, which is highest in the NHL by an absolute landslide. I think the next team is about 3.5. So there's obviously some value in picking up some of these players that have, since this offense has been so good. But who do you pick up? There's guys like Yanni Gourde, who's been producing a lot. Daniel Sprong, also an option. But I think Jordan Eberle is the safest and best value option right now. He has 8 points in his last 7 games, 2 goals and 6 assists. He's playing on that first line with Matty Beniers, who's been on fire as of late as well. And then Andre Burakovsky, who's a really solid goal scorer. He's playing on the first power play as well with very similar players. And we've seen the chemistry really build on this Kraken team this year, especially. Dave Haskell's done a great job with especially keeping the guys that were involved in the expansion draft. These guys have really started to mesh well and play well together. Perfect example is Jordan Eberle is one of those players. He's 4th in expected goals on this team over the last 2 weeks as well. 2nd most high danger chances, 2nd in assists too. And the skill level between him and Beniers, in my opinion, is enough to really trust the fact that you could pick this guy up. At 25% rostered, Jordan Eberle, we've seen obviously maybe his prime is in his past, but with how well this Kraken offense, it's kind of hard to ignore some of these players, and I think Jordan Eberle is definitely a guy that you should be looking at. So at 25% rostered, definitely an option to pick up if you're in a league that he's available. If not, I think I'd go after Daniel Sprong. His shot volume's really gone up. He's only 9% rostered, so if you need another guy, I think Sprong's a good option. All right, the next guy we're going to be picking up this week, a defenseman on the New Jersey Devils, and that's Ryan Graves, 15% rostered. John Marino right now, week to week on this Devils team, he's been very important to this team's defensive structure and even in the offensive end. But with him out, leaves a little bit more leeway for Graves to get some ice time. He's week to week right now, as I mentioned, so not entirely sure when he'll come back, but at least for the next 2 weeks, I think Graves will be a great option. We've seen his minutes go up from 18 to 21, 22 his last 3 games. He has 5 points in his last 4 games with a +9 rating and then 15 blocks, which actually leads all defensemen over that span as well. And they've played teams like Carolina in that span where he has 5 points in 4 games, the Kings, and then also the Rangers. So it's good to see that he's producing against really solid defensive teams and then also teams with good goaltending as well. He's tied 4th in points over the last week amongst defensemen too. We've seen Graves as a guy who's gone over 25 plus points in a season multiple times, and he's always had kind of an injury bug. We've seen these 25 to 30 point seasons in 75 games, 68 games. So in a full season on this Devils team, I think we'll even be able to see something even higher than maybe 30 this year. He's really valuable in bangers leagues as well. I mentioned before how many blocks he's had over the last 2 weeks, but on the season, he's up to 74 blocks and then 52 hits as well, which is pretty solid too, and making up for those days where if he doesn't have a point, he's definitely making up in the block category as well. He doesn't play on the power play, which might deter you from picking him up at this point, which I don't honestly blame, but in my opinion, the Devils' 5-on-5 offense is one of the best in the NHL. It's been one of the best the entire season too. So I will put faith in a guy like Graves to produce, even though he's not on the power play. He does play on the penalty kill, so that's also an area where you'll see him get a lot of block shots. If you're in a deeper league, I think this is one of the best options you can pick up on D right now. Siegenthaler too, another good option, but I think Graves would be my number one on this Devils team. All right, so the last guy we're going to be picking up this week, 4% rostered, I think a hidden gem right now, and I think you really need to pick this guy up because I think he's going to start to take an even bigger role on this team, and that's Juuso Parssinen on the Nashville Predators. He's now playing on the first line on this Predators team, and this offense, compared to years past, especially contribution from the forwards, they've been much better this year, producing way more shots per game and scoring chances. This guy was a 7th-round pick back in 2019, so it's a little surprising to see him obviously on this team at this point, but he's been in the AHL, been in Milwaukee for 2 years, the Nashville's minor hockey league team, and now since being called up, he's been great, especially recently. In his last 6 games, he has 8 points. Hasn't been much of a goal scorer, but one playing on this first line with some of the higher skilled guys on Nashville, like Filip Forsberg, he's going to obviously succeed and excel. And he also leads the team in assists over the last 7 games with 7 assists. So an assist per game over the last 7, definitely something to note, especially at a guy who's 4% rostered. And then he also is now on the first power play line. Doesn't center that first power play line, but he's on the wing. I think that speaks volumes about his shot and playmaking ability as well, that at this young has only played about 28 games on this team too, that he's being trusted to play on this first power play line with a bunch of really skilled guys, including Roman Josi as well. And as I mentioned, this offense has been really solid over this past year, and you look at recently too, an expected goals number of 3, which is top 6 in the NHL. Over his last 2 games too, Parssinen has seen his ice time increase from 14 minutes, which is what we've seen since he's been called up, but over the last 3 games, we've seen him get up to 17 minutes. So obviously they're putting more and more faith in him every single week. At only 4%, I mean, you're getting in on a huge hidden gem at this point. I think for even your league mates will get a whiff of him. I think this is a guy you have to pick up right now, especially in deeper leagues, potentially even a keeper pick if he continues to produce at this level for Nashville. Thank you guys for tuning in. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Join the Discord if you haven't already, and also join OWNERSBOX to play some NHL DFS, one of the best places and only place in Ontario to play right now. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you guys in the next video for injury updates for the rest of the season.